Hello, this is Matthew Oates. I'm the product manager with Salient Process. In this video, I'm going to show you the best way to extend your ignition-enabled processes using the Spark Ignition Toolkit to add business objects, custom UI, and integrations. Be sure to check out our other videos where you can learn more about how you can bring in BlueWorks Live models directly into BPM and then build really useful processes automatically just with the click of a button in IBM BPM. Just to recap before I get started, remember the Spark Ignition Toolkit is a toolkit that helps you turn more ideas and more real-life workflow into IBM BPM processes. Quite often we see that we have great ideas or existing processes and there's just a backlog of getting those processes built out in IBM BPM. So this toolkit is designed to change that. Often our customers have lots of processes in BlueWorks Live, so we have a feature that's designed specifically to bring in the work that you've done in BlueWorks Live. It leverages the existing subscription feature in BlueWorks Live, and then it extends that feature to really create some great processes. Be sure to check out the other video for BlueWorks Live to BPM work. But again, in this video, we're going to focus on taking what Spark Ignition already does and being able to extend it with custom UI or with your own business objects or integrations as IBM BPM allows you to do. So let's refresh ourselves with our previous process here. This is the request the demo process. This is the process we use in our other videos. So it has, we request the sales team will request something, and then we'll go, it will go to a review request step for the product manager and so on. So we've already built this process in IBM BPM using the Spark Ignition feature. By we've built it, Spark Ignition really built it for us. So be sure to check out that other video to see how that happened. So we have the process here. The process itself has things that Spark Ignition did for us, like it implemented a different activity default ignition service. It's already done all of the mapping here. But what if we wanted to have in each of these activities have some data input, maybe with customer information? Well, to start, what you want to do whenever you want to extend is to go to the Spark Ignition toolkit that's in the dependency of whatever process app you've already applied ignition to. I'm going to replicate the default ignition human service. If you were working in processes or with client-side human services, we have Spark Ignition both works with web PD or desktop PD, client-side human services or heritage human services, really either one here. I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate the heritage human service. All right, so once I've done that, I'm going to rename it here so that we can make sure we keep up with which one is which. So I'm going to say the request a demo ignition service. All right, now that I've done that, let's actually open this up and see what's in here. So this is a duplicate of the the default ignition human service, and so it's pretty straightforward stuff, right? All it has is the postpone, so we can use that out-of-the-box feature for postponing and saving the state of the process. If we look at variables, maybe the first thing we want to do is be able to have customer information be brought into this service and used and be an output from this service. So why don't I go ahead and type in customer information here. Again, a design principle of all Salient product processes, but specifically Spark Ignition, is we're working with IBM BPM. So there's not some additional overlay where we make up business objects and we store them somewhere else, or we try to automatically generate something here. The features of the tool are normally very sufficient for us to rapidly create processes, and we want to embrace that as we design products that extend IBM BPM, not replace features that are already there. Now we probably want to have a specific business object variable type for this information, and like a lot of our customers, we have toolkits within Salient Process that keeps up with reusable business objects or reusable coach views for UI or integrations. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in our Salient customer information toolkit. And this toolkit will have an object for us. Again, we're not doing anything crazy here in terms of automatically generating something. We're doing probably what you do today if you do IBM BPM, or you have a certain set of objects you want to use. So you can continue to use those objects and blend them in with Ignition. We'll do the same thing with coaches here. So what we see if in the default coach here is we're actually using the Spark Ignition coach view. So the Spark Ignition coach view is what renders these great useful tasks for us, where we can see to-dos and we can see information and we can have links and references. So the coach view itself contains all of that information, but it also allows you to drag and drop additional content to extend what you're going to see in that same type of UI design. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in a reusable coach view that I have, and we're going to see it's just going to be simple information around creating a company name and company industry. These are things that Salient Processes created outside of the context of Ignition, and just like you might have had reusable coach views that you've created in IBM BPM. So you want to stick with your standards. We want you to be able to use your standards, so we allow you to certainly add that information directly into an Ignition Enable service. All right, so once we've done that, now we're actually all set to be able to reuse a customized human service in our process. So why don't we go ahead and swap out these activities here. So I'm going to just click here. I'm going to say, let's, instead of having the default, let's use my new Ignition service. Once I've done that, I'm going to go to data mapping. I'm going to make sure I need a customer information object. I'm going to make sure that goes in and out of this first step. And let's go ahead and apply that to these other human services. Again, there are some other tools out there that automatically do screen creation and make you stick to a certain format with screens. And while we have that outline of the Ignition view that you'll see with the tasks, we want to embrace what you're going to do to use Ignition as a foundation for future development. So we're not developing anything in Spark Ignition that's going to be throwaway as you extend your processes. That's a critical design principle to what we were trying to accomplish. We didn't want to build some overlay on top of IBM BPM. We wanted you to build things specifically for expansion in IBM BPM very quickly. So here we go. We're just going to replace all of these human services with our new request to demo here. All right. Just double check to make sure I got them all. Yep, I did. All right, so why don't we go into our process, and we actually have one old one going. Why don't we start a new process? All right, so we're going to start this new process. 556 here is going to come up, and we're going to run it, and we're going to see what it looks like, how it's different than what that previous screen was that we saw. So it's going to take a little bit to load the first one. That's because we've added a new toolkit, and there's some compilation that IBM BPM does in the background for any new toolkit added to a process application. But what you'll see is actually it's the same look and feel, but now we're going to see an additional section available at the bottom. And this additional section is that information that I added earlier. So if I want to have, Salient process here, or if I want to, say IBM process transformation, because we all know Salient process works exclusively with IBM BPM and IBM's process transformation suite, including ODM and DSI and BlueWorks-i. So we are exclusively in the IBM process transformation group. I can put, this information here, and I can have the information that I want to add. So we're extending this same capability that we had when, saying what I need to do, but we're adding what might be a natural extension, so actually capturing information here. Or maybe I want to go ahead and say we have an embedded box integration. So IBM BPM allows you to build in some box integrations using the box iframes that are available from Box if you're a Box customer. So we can see that we have information here, and we can say, please conduct a great demo. All right, so once we've had this information, if we complete this step, it's going to let me know that I need to complete my work up here. So it's the same fundamental thing as we saw previously in the other videos for these tasks. So I'm going to complete my work. And then when I move on to the next step in the process, since we added that business object and we mapped that flow, again, using what IBM BPM always allows you to do, we're going to be able to see, well, this information is going to get carried from one step to the next step. So that's how we can add business objects and UI to any ignition-enabled activity. Last thing I want to show is, you might remember in our BlueWorks Live diagram, I'm going to go over here and look at BlueWorks Live. We created this model, so this is a working model, but we put a placeholder here for an integration. IBM BPM ignores this integration at front because we don't have any implementation. But again, since we're embracing the fact that this is a BPD, or if we had processes, we could use processes here, and we're not using some other type of state engine or some kind of way that's not transparent to users, we can actually use BPM in notation that's built into IBM BPM and then start extending it whenever we need to. So let's say, for example, there's a Salesforce integration that we have. We could go ahead and have that integration, and we could map that with the company name and the customer information. So by using BPM and the actual model that we developed in BlueWorks Live, we can continue to extend the process application that we built using Spark Ignition. So that shows you how to add business objects, how to add custom UI, how to add integrations to a Spark Ignition-enabled process. Be sure to check out the other videos where we showed you how to generate this to begin with. And then if you weren't using BlueWorks Live and maybe you wanted to create something from scratch, there's going to be some other videos that are going to be made available shortly to show you how to do that. So thanks for watching the video, and enjoy using Spark Ignition.